This Thursday, the nation will mark 1 year since the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol. Officials are warning of possible threat actors who may try to promote or commit violence on January 6th. Meanwhile, new CBS News polling shows the events of that day still divide Americans nearly 1 year later. CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion reports.
Tonight, the Capitol buried in a blanket of white, preparing to mark one of the darkest days in U.S. history. Nearly a year since the insurrection, a new CBS News poll found the country is still divided, with 85% of Democrats calling it just that, while roughly half of Republicans said it was patriotism and defending freedom. Two-thirds of respondents said democracy is under threat and fear more political violence.
In terms of democracy being healed, it feels like we're even more divided than we've ever been.
Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger sits on the House Select Committee investigating the attack, which will resume hearings this winter.
What we can do is give the American people a full accountability.
Panel members say they have a growing body of evidence that multiple people reached out to former President Trump, including his daughter Ivanka, to urge him to intervene to stop the violence.
The committee has firsthand testimony that President Trump was sitting in the dining room next to the Oval Office watching on television as the Capitol was assaulted, as the violence occurred.
The panel isn't ruling out a criminal referral for the former president or additional subpoenas to lawmakers as part of its probe. The Justice Department is also ramping up prosecutions of the more than 725 individuals who have been arrested. 165 have pleaded guilty, though only 31 have been sentenced to jail time.
And Nikole joins me now with more from Capitol Hill. Nikole, how significant are these new revelations about Ivanka Trump pushing her father to stop the violence last year? What would this really mean for the committee's investigation?
Well, it's just another piece of the puzzle as they try to figure out what happened on the 6th, particularly those 187 minutes where there wasn't any response or action from the former president. As far as Ivanka Trump is concerned, look, this is stuff that has been reported in some books, but it is another nugget, as I said, that kind of helps advance the narrative. And that really, at the end of the day, is what the committee is trying to get to. What was happening in those 187 minutes? Why didn't the president act sooner? And, you know, they have said that they already have testimony that the former president may have been watching this coverage unfold on TV, that they do have a testimony that suggests that multiple people tried to get in touch with the former president and the White House to try to urge him to intervene, including his own daughter. So, you know, they are looking to kind of build this narrative around the events of that day. And so this will help them, they believe, advance their investigation accordingly.
It certainly would present a fuller picture for posterity. You know, it's important to note here that a congressional investigation is not a criminal case. It's not a court of law. So even if they do find evidence of misconduct, what does it really mean for Mr. Trump or even for his allies who are still in Congress?
Well, Chairman Benny Thompson made clear that it is something that is on the table. And to your point, the committee has made clear that they are not a fact-finding committee in terms of trying to deal with the legal side of things with respect to any potential criminal activity. But, however, if they feel that there is evidence out there, if they come across something, they are open or willing to refer that to the Justice Department or to let the Justice Department know. And as Chairman Thompson said, that is part of their responsibility as a committee, as members of Congress. So if they do uncover anything, they do intend to refer that out if it warrants it.
Right. You know, one of the committee members, California Congressman Adam Schiff, told Face the Nation over the weekend that he hopes that public hearings are going to begin in a matter of weeks or possibly months. Do we know yet what these public hearings will look like? Who might be called to testify? What's the goal of these hearings?
Well, we do expect that they will take place at some point this winter and possibly stretch into the spring, according to those familiar with the timetable of the committee, with the hope of trying to produce a report as soon as this summer and perhaps a final report closer to the time of the election. But again, this is really about trying to build a narrative around what happened. Chairman Thompson said in an interview over the weekend that, for instance, they could call state and local elections officials, some of whom we know have spoken to the panel, that they could potentially, drill down more on this issue involving the National Guard and some of the delays there, that they could also potentially call a government or former government officials, particularly those from the Department of Justice, who we also know the committee has been speaking to as well. So as they have been able to gain more information from some of these witnesses, I think some of them in turn may testify publicly, and that is something that the committee is expected to do in short order.
Finally, Nikole, since you're there on Capitol Hill, set the stage for us about what the next few days are going to look like. How does Congress plan to mark the one-year anniversary of this attack on the Capitol itself?
Well, there will be a day of events observing what happened that day. Obviously, it will be a solemn and somber occasion. A lot of this is being headed up by Speaker Pelosi, and so we do know that the House, even though they are currently out, will hold a pro forma session. We also know that there will be the President and Vice President Harris are expected to be here at the Capitol and speak that day. We know that there will be a discussion among historians to kind of put the day in context, if you will. And also there will be a number of members who will be here again, even though the House is out, led by Congressman Crow of Colorado, who was trapped in the gallery that day. I sat down extensively with him a couple of months ago, but he's part of this informal support network of lawmakers who kind of banded together after being trapped in that gallery. So you'll hear from him and other members about their recollections and reflections that day. And then the day will conclude with a vigil on the center steps of the Capitol. So that is the program that is currently scheduled. Of course, there will be some counter programming too. We do know that the former President Trump, will be holding a press conference that day as well at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, a real searing memory for anyone who was in the Capitol that day, from senators to cafeteria workers and, of course, Capitol Police, staffers, journalists, thousands of people who lived through that. Nikole Killion, thank you so much.
Absolutely.